What if I told you that your body may have already sent you a warning about a stroke, and you thanked it for the rest and moved on with your day? Not a dramatic warning, not a moment that stopped you in your tracks. Something smaller. A leg that felt slightly off when you got out of bed, a foot that dragged for just a few steps down the hallway, a moment of unsteadiness on the stairs that you blamed on moving too fast, small enough to forget by breakfast, small enough to never mention to anyone. That is what makes this so important to talk about. Most people associate stroke with a sudden catastrophic event. No warning, no time. But in a significant number of cases, the body communicates before the crisis. And some of the earliest, most overlooked signals show up not in the face or the arms, but in the legs. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 of those signals, what they feel like, why they happen, and exactly what to do if you recognize any of them in yourself or someone you love. Because the difference between catching this early and missing it entirely often comes down to knowing what you're looking for. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. Sign number 1. First thing in the morning. One leg feels strange the moment you step out of bed. Think about this morning. The moment you woke up and swung your legs over the side of the bed, did both feet feel the same when they touched the floor? Most people never think about that question. You get up, you walk to the bathroom, you start your day. But that first step, that very first moment when your feet meet the ground, can sometimes tell you something important about what is happening inside your brain. Here is what I want you to understand. When you sleep, your brain does not shut off. It continues sending signals to every part of your body, keeping muscles ready, maintaining sensation, regulating blood flow. So when you wake up and place both feet on the floor, both legs should feel roughly the same. Not perfect, not like you are 20 years old again, but similar. Left and right should feel like they belong to the same person. Now, there is a difference between normal morning stiffness and something that deserves your attention. If both legs feel a little stiff after a long night, and that stiffness fades within a minute or two once you start moving, that is usually just your body warming up. That is not what I am talking about. What concerns me is when one leg feels clearly different from the other. One foot feels numb while the other feels fine. One leg feels heavy, almost like it has extra weight on it, while the other moves normally. One side tingles or burns or feels strangely disconnected, as if it does not quite belong to you, and it does not go away after a minute of walking around. This matters because sensation and movement are controlled by your brain. The brain sends signals down through the spinal cord and nerves to reach your legs. If blood flow to a specific area of the brain becomes reduced or interrupted, even briefly, the signals to one side of your body can be disrupted. The brain controls the body in a cross pattern, which means a problem on the left side of the brain may cause changes on the right side of the body and the other way around. That is why stroke-related symptoms almost always show up on just one side. So here is something practical you can do starting tomorrow morning. When you step out of bed, pause for just a few seconds before you rush to the bathroom. Place both feet flat on the floor. Pay attention. Does one foot feel different from the other? Is there numbness, tingling, heaviness, or a strange, dull sensation on one side that was not there yesterday? If both sides feel similar, that is reassuring. But if one side feels clearly off, and especially if that feeling is new, do not brush it aside. Mention it to your doctor. Write down when it started and which side. Now, that first step out of bed is just the beginning. What happens next when you actually start walking across the room can reveal a second warning sign that most people completely overlook. Sign number 2, walking to the bathroom. One foot drags or falls behind the other. Think about the walk from your bedroom to the bathroom. 15 steps, maybe 20. No shoes, no warm-up, no time to ease into the morning. It's the most unguarded walk you take all day, and for that exact reason, it's one of the most revealing. You're not performing. You're not paying attention to your posture, you're just moving, the way your body moves when no one's watching and your brain is still half asleep. And sometimes, in that unguarded moment, you notice something. One foot doesn't quite come forward the way it should. It feels like it hesitates at the floor, or drags slightly, or takes just a half beat longer to lift than the other side. Not dramatically, not enough to make you stumble, just enough to notice and then forget by the time you reach the sink. Here's what's important to understand about that hesitation. Walking is not a simple mechanical action. Every step you take requires a continuous conversation between your brain and your legs. Your brain sends a signal, your leg receives it, and the foot lifts and moves forward in precise coordination. When a portion of the brain responsible for motor control is experiencing reduced blood flow, that signal can become delayed, weakened, or inconsistent. The leg still moves, but the timing is slightly off. The foot doesn't lift with the same authority it normally does. From the outside, it might look like a shuffle. From the inside, it feels like the leg is 1 second behind the rest of you. What makes this easy to dismiss is that it doesn't look serious. There's no pain, you don't fall. You just feel a little slow on one side and you assume your body is still waking up. And plenty of the time it is. Normal morning stiffness, mild dehydration, or disrupted sleep can all affect how your legs feel in those first few minutes. But there's a line between that and something that deserves attention. Normal stiffness affects both legs and loosens within a few minutes of movement. What's different, what you want to watch for, is when one foot consistently drags, when only one side feels like it's falling behind, when it happens not just once but several mornings in a row, or when it's paired with any of the sensations we discussed a moment ago. If you're uncertain, pay attention to your first 3 steps tomorrow morning. Not the whole walk, just the first 3. Are both feet lifting evenly? Is one foot grazing the floor while the other clears it cleanly? That small observation takes no effort and costs you nothing. But it might tell you something worth knowing. And if the foot does drag, what happens when the problem moves beyond just walking and starts affecting how well you can actually carry your own weight? Sign number 3. Climbing the stairs. One leg can no longer support your weight. Before people recognize a symptom, they often change their behavior to avoid it. They just don't realize that's what they're doing. Maybe you've started leading with the same foot every time you go upstairs. Maybe you've been gripping the handrail a little tighter lately, or pausing on a step for a moment before pushing up. Maybe you've stopped going upstairs as often as you used to, and when someone asks why, you say you've just been taking it easy. None of these feel like warning signs. They feel like reasonable adjustments, sensible caution. But sometimes underneath those small adjustments, one leg has quietly become less reliable than the other, and the body has already started working around it before the mind is caught up. This is one of the more subtle patterns I see, and it matters precisely because it hides so well. When you climb a stair, your full body weight shifts onto a single leg for a fraction of a second. Your brain is managing that transfer constantly, balancing load, adjusting posture, timing the push-off so the movement feels fluid and controlled. It does this automatically, thousands of times without you ever having to think about it. But when the brain's ability to manage that process becomes disrupted, even partially, one side can start to feel unreliable. Not completely weak, not collapsed, just subtly untrustworthy, the way a chair feels when one leg is slightly shorter than the others. You sit in it, but you don't fully settle. People often describe it as a feeling that the leg might give way or that it takes noticeably more effort to push up on one side than the other. Some notice it when standing up from a low chair or a couch. Others feel it when pulling on pants, suddenly needing to sit down to do something they used to do standing. These aren't dramatic moments, but they are consistent and they are one-sided, and that combination is what makes them worth taking seriously. Normal age-related muscle loss happens slowly, across both legs, over a period of years. What you're watching for is different, a change in one leg that arrived relatively recently that makes that side feel unreliable in a way the other side doesn't. If you want a simple way to check, stand near a wall, lightly touch it for balance, and try holding your weight on one leg for 5 seconds. Then switch. If one side feels significantly shakier or less stable, not weaker from disuse, but suddenly different, that's the kind of finding your doctor needs to hear about. Don't keep compensating. Compensation delays the conversation you need to have, because the next sign doesn't happen on the stairs. It happens somewhere far more ordinary, on completely flat ground, where there should be nothing in your way at all. Sign number 4, going for a walk. Your body drifts to one side without you knowing. Nobody notices it from the inside. That's what separates this sign from every other one we've talked about. With the leg that feels heavy in the morning or the foot that drags on the way to the bathroom, there's a sensation, something you can point to, something that gets your attention even briefly. But this one arrives without any feeling at all. No weakness, no tingling, no discomfort. You step outside for your usual walk, you feel completely normal, and somewhere along that familiar route, your body begins drifting, slowly, steadily, toward one side. And you have no idea it's happening. This is one of the more unsettling things the brain can do when its blood supply becomes compromised. Most people assume that if something were wrong with their balance or coordination, they'd feel it. They'd feel unstable or dizzy or off. But the part of the brain responsible for keeping your body on a straight path is also the part responsible for telling you whether you're on a straight path. When that region is disrupted, the signal and the error correction both become unreliable at the same time. You lose the ability to drift and the ability to notice the drift simultaneously. In practice, this shows up in small ways that are easy to attribute to distraction or environment. You find yourself closer to one side of the grocery store aisle than you meant to be. You drift toward the wall while walking down a long hallway. On a sidewalk, you veer slightly toward the grass or toward the curb. You bump into a doorframe passing through a room you've navigated 1,000 times without incident. Each moment feels like a minor lapse in attention. Collectively, they form a pattern that deserves a closer look. The reason this is so important to catch is that you almost certainly won't catch it yourself. You'll need someone else to tell you. That's not a comfortable thing to hear. Most of us prefer to trust our own perceptions of our own bodies. But if your walking partner, your spouse, or a family member has mentioned recently that you seem to be veering to one side, or if they've reached out to steady you in a moment you didn't think required steadying, take that observation seriously. External feedback about your gait is often more accurate than your internal sense of it. A simple way to check on your own: find a long, empty hallway and walk its length while looking straight ahead. Then look back at the path you took. A consistent, noticeable curve in one direction, especially if it's new, is worth mentioning to your doctor. And while drifting to one side happens without your awareness, the next sign is the opposite. You'll feel it immediately the moment it happens, on completely flat ground, with nothing in your way. Sign number 5, tripping on nothing. One foot doesn't lift the way it should. You blamed the rug, then the uneven threshold between rooms, then the corner of the bath mat, then your slippers, which maybe had gotten worn down on the bottom. There was always something to point to, always a reasonable explanation sitting right there, ready to be used. But then it happened again on bare floor. Nothing in the way, nothing to catch on, and yet your foot caught anyway. That moment, tripping on a surface that should be completely safe, is one of the clearest examples of how the brain's loss of precise motor control shows up in everyday life, and it almost always gets blamed on everything except what's actually causing it. Here's the mechanics of what's happening. Every time you take a step, your brain calculates exactly how high to lift your foot off the floor. It sounds simple, but it's an extraordinarily precise operation. Your brain is accounting for your speed, the surface beneath you, the position of your body, and dozens of other variables, all in a fraction of a second. The margin for error is small. On a flat floor, your foot might clear the ground by less than an inch at its lowest point during a normal stride. That clearance doesn't feel like much, and when brain signaling to that leg becomes disrupted, even a small reduction is enough to make the foot scuff, catch, or drag. What makes this sign particularly important is that it tends to be consistent and one-sided. Most people who experience this will notice it's always the same foot, always the left or always the right. Not alternating, not random. The same side, repeatedly. That pattern is the body's way of telling you the problem isn't the floor. The floor is fine. The floor is the same floor it's always been. What's changed is the signal reaching that leg. Falls are not a small concern for anyone in this age group. Hip fractures alone can lead to hospitalization, surgery, months of rehabilitation, and in too many cases, a permanent loss of the mobility someone once took for granted. The tragedy is that many of those falls were preceded by weeks of subtle warning, a foot that kept catching, a stride that felt slightly off, and the signs were there to be read if someone had known what to look for. So pay attention to which foot trips and pay attention to whether it's new. If one foot has started catching on surfaces it used to clear without any trouble and you notice it happening more than once, don't swap out your slippers. Call your doctor. Now, what happens when the leg doesn't just move poorly, but starts moving on its own without you asking it to? Sign number 6, sitting still. One leg shakes or trembles on its own. Sitting still has never required much thought. You settle into a chair, your body quiets down, and that's that. Your legs stay where you put them. They've done it without effort your entire life, because keeping the body still, it turns out, is just as much a brain function as moving it, which is why it's worth paying close attention when one leg decides to move anyway. It usually starts small, a faint vibration in the thigh, a foot that bounces lightly against the floor while you're watching television, a tremor in the lower leg that you notice, press down with your hand, and don't think about again until it comes back the next evening. Some people assume it's too much coffee. Others chalk it up to nerves or fatigue or the kind of restless energy that has nowhere to go at the end of a long day. It feels harmless. It feels almost like a quirk. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface when a leg trembles at rest. Your brain doesn't just send signals when you want to move, it's continuously sending signals to your muscles even when you're perfectly still, making thousands of tiny adjustments every minute to maintain tone, posture, and stillness. It's a constant, precise regulation. When that regulation becomes disrupted and when the part of the brain managing that process isn't receiving adequate blood flow, small, uncontrolled muscle movements can surface. The leg shakes not because it wants to move, but because the brain's ability to keep it still has been compromised. The detail that separates a benign nervous habit from something that deserves medical attention is almost always the same: which side and whether it's new. Habits tend to be bilateral. Both legs jiggle or neither does, and the pattern has been there for years. What's different is a tremor that has appeared recently in only one leg that you didn't have 6 months ago that you can't fully suppress when you try. If pressing your hand on the leg stops it immediately and completely, that's one thing. If the trembling continues even under pressure or returns within seconds, that's the nervous system telling you something the rest of your body hasn't announced yet. The urgency increases significantly when the tremor arrives alongside anything else, even something as mild as slight weakness on that same side, a change in sensation, a moment of confusion, or difficulty finding a word. Any one of those combinations warrants a call, not a wait and see. One tremor on one quiet evening means very little. A pattern of it, always the same leg, always without reason, that means something. And the last sign we need to talk about is the quietest of all. You won't feel it as movement. You'll feel it as an absence. Sign number 7, before bed. You wash your foot but can barely feel the water. There's a quiet test most people perform every single night without realizing it. In the shower or sitting on the edge of the tub, warm water runs over both feet. And without any conscious thought, the body registers it. The temperature, the pressure, the exact location of the water against the skin. It happens automatically, completely beneath awareness. Until one evening, something is different. The water feels clear on one foot and strangely muffled on the other. Not absent, just dulled, like hearing a conversation through a closed door. You adjust the angle of the shower head. You run your hand across the foot to confirm what you're feeling, and for a moment something feels genuinely off. Then you dry off, get into bed, and by morning you've forgotten it entirely. That moment deserves more than forgetting. Sensation in the feet is not passive. Your nervous system is constantly transmitting information upward: pressure, temperature, texture, position, through a chain of nerves that ultimately reaches the brain. The brain processes that information in real time and uses it to make continuous adjustments to your posture, your balance, your stride. It's a conversation happening thousands of times per minute between your feet and your brain, and you are never aware of it because it has always worked perfectly. When blood flow to a region of the brain becomes compromised, that conversation can be interrupted. The foot is still there, the nerves are still there, but the signal isn't arriving the way it should. What the person experiences is not pain, not tingling necessarily, but a kind of sensory dimming. One side of the foot or lower leg that simply doesn't register touch, water, or pressure with the same clarity as the other side. This matters beyond the sensation itself. When your brain isn't receiving accurate feedback from your feet, it loses precision in managing your balance. You may not consciously realize your footing is off, but the body is working with incomplete information every time you stand, walk, or shift your weight. That significantly raises the risk of losing balance in situations that should be completely safe. Stepping out of the shower, walking across a dark room at night, standing up from a chair too quickly. The practical check is simple and takes 30 seconds. Tonight, run 2 fingers across the top and sole of each foot with the same pressure. Close your eyes. Ask yourself honestly, does one side feel noticeably less clear than the other? Not colder, not rougher, just dimmer, more distant, less there. If the answer is yes, and it wasn't like that 6 months ago, that's the 7th sign. You've now seen every one of them. 7 signals, all quiet, all easy to explain away, and all pointing to the same possibility. What you do in the next few minutes of this video may be the most important part. Important warning, 7 signs. 7 quiet moments that most people file away under fatigue, age, or coincidence. And if even one of them felt familiar while you were watching, I need you to take that seriously. The most dangerous sentence in a medical emergency is not a complicated one. It is 4 words. Let's just wait and see. People say it because the symptoms seem mild, because they don't want to overreact, because they don't want to worry their family, or sit in an emergency room for hours over something that might turn out to be nothing. I understand that completely. But with stroke, waiting is not a neutral decision. Every minute the brain goes without adequate blood flow, nearly 2 million neurons can be lost. There is no version of this where waiting makes things better. Here is what I want you to remember. Not 7 signs, not a long checklist, just 3 words. One-sided, sudden, different. If anything you're feeling in your legs right now fits those 3 words, one leg, not both. Recently started, not a long-standing issue. And clearly different from your normal. That is the moment to act, not the moment to observe. Call 911. Do not drive yourself and do not ask a family member to drive you. Emergency teams can begin evaluation on the way to the hospital, and they can take you directly to a facility equipped to treat stroke. When they arrive, tell them exactly when the symptom first appeared. That single detail can determine which treatments are still available to you. To anyone watching this with an aging parent or spouse, your role matters enormously. If you notice something off in the way they're walking, standing, or speaking, do not reassure them into waiting. Act first, confirm later. The brain you protect today is the one that carries everything. Your memories, your independence, your ability to live on your own terms. Don't give it away over 4 words. Before you go, I want to say something that I mean genuinely. Thank you for spending this time here. A lot of people scroll past health information because it feels distant, or complicated, or too uncomfortable to sit with. You stayed. That tells me something about how seriously you take your own well-being, and that matters more than you might think. If anything in this video gave you pause, if one of those 7 signs felt a little too familiar, please don't keep that to yourself. Talk to your doctor. Mention it at your next visit or call before then if something feels urgent. You are not overreacting by taking your body seriously. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, a parent, share this video with them. Not with alarm, just quietly, the way you'd pass along something that helped you. Sometimes one conversation, one video is enough to change what someone notices and what they do about it. If this video was helpful to you, leave a 1 in the comments below. If it missed the mark, a 0 is just as welcome. Your honest feedback helps me make this content better for everyone watching. Hit the subscribe button and the bell if you'd like to stay connected. I'll keep showing up here with information that's worth your time. Take good care of yourself. You've earned it.